This is Iron Man's most badass suit-up ever. After his mansion gets hit by a missile strike, Tony rushes to protect Pepper by remotely sending the Mark 42 armor onto her body, while he takes the full blast head-on. Once the armor finishes assembling on her, the shockwave slams both of them hard against the wall. Tony barely comes to his senses and spots his assistant lying unconscious nearby. The ceiling above them is cracking apart fast, but just in time, Pepper shields him with her armored body.
I got you.
I got you first.
They're about to make a run for it when another missile comes flying in. Tony tells Pepper to go first, and he'll be right behind her, but the floor collapses between them. Tony tells Pepper to go save the assistant instead and get her out safely. He'll find his own way out. With no time to argue, Pepper has no choice but to do as he says. But the attackers keep raining down missiles, and the entire mansion starts to crumble. Without his armor, Tony is completely vulnerable. Once he confirms Pepper and the assistant made it out safe, he immediately calls the armor back to him. But the attackers aren't about to let that happen. They open fire on the mansion with everything they've got. Tony pushes through the hail of bullets and manages to suit up just in the nick of time. But the Mark 42 is just a prototype. Its weapons system is still in testing, so it can't hit anything at that range. That's when he spots the piano beneath him and gets an idea. He fires a repulsor blast straight at the piano, sending it flying through the air. And it takes out a helicopter. But that move also gives away his position. He ducks behind the mansion's walls for cover, while quickly pulling a microbomb from his arm and hurling it toward the chopper. He takes out another helicopter, but the wreckage comes spinning right at him. Tony can't dodge in time, and the blast sends him crashing down into the lab below. The last helicopter doesn't back off. Instead, it ramps up the firepower. The massive mansion is reduced to rubble in seconds. Tony plunges into the ocean along with it. Before he can even react, a cable yanks him deep underwater. He barely breaks free, only to get pinned under a massive slab of debris. To make things worse, water starts flooding the suit. But right when it matters most, Jarvis automatically detaches the Mark 42's arm and uses the thruster to pull Tony out. The moment he's free, Tony fires up the flight system, blasts out of the water, and disappears into the sky. Pepper thinks Tony died in the ocean and lets out a scream of pure despair. The attackers assume the target's been eliminated. They circle once in their chopper and fly away, drifting in and out of consciousness. Tony wakes up to the sound of Jarvis's voice, but the suit's power is already below 5%. And sure enough, Tony goes into a free fall straight toward the ground. Thanks to some trees breaking his fall, Tony manages a rough but safe landing, barely escaping with his life. Based on the flight plan he'd set earlier, Jarvis brought him to the middle of nowhere in Tennessee. Tony's face drops instantly. He's terrified they'll go after Pepper while he's gone. But looking at the state he's in right now, even if the suit could fly him back in one piece, he wouldn't be able to help Pepper. He'd only put her in even more danger. So Tony decides to find a place to lay low for now, and start investigating the mastermind behind it all. The Mandarin. Out of the suit, the freezing wind cuts right through him. He tries to climb back in for warmth, but Jarvis tells him the Mark 42 is completely drained. With no other option, Tony drags his old friend along. Trudging through the heavy snow, Tony drags the armor into a nearby shed. He sees all the tools and equipment inside and likes what he sees, so he decides to set up camp here for now. But just as he's patching up his wounds, the owner of the place shows up.
Don't move.
Nice potato gun. Barrel's a little long. Between that and the wide gauge, it's gonna diminish your FPS.
Their first meeting is pretty unconventional, but the moment this kid spots the armor, his eyes light up with pure excitement. As a die-hard Iron Man fan, he recognizes Tony right away. He hands Tony a newspaper, with the headline reporting that Tony Stark is dead. But Tony doesn't seem the least bit worried when he makes his comeback. They're all gonna pay. As they talk, Tony learns the kid's name is Harley, and he lives here all by himself. When Harley hears Tony needs to fix the Mark 42, he doesn't hesitate. He'll help find whatever parts are needed. Tony's more than happy to accept, and to show his gratitude, he gives the kid one of his mini flash grenades. With Harley leading the way, they head to the local explosion site and track down the victim's mother at a bar. She hands Tony a file, but right then, a woman appears out of nowhere, slams Tony onto a table and cuffs him. This doesn't sit well with the local sheriff. The woman claims she's from Homeland Security, here to apprehend a fugitive, but the sheriff's not buying any of it. With her cover blown, the woman immediately attacks. In all the chaos, Tony bolts out of the bar, but he barely gets a few steps before her partner cuts him off. Without his suit, Tony's best move is to run. He crashes through a window into a restaurant to hide, but she finds him again and opens fire without a word. Tony reacts fast enough to dodge, but turns a corner and runs right into her again. They get into a brawl. Tony tries to use the handcuffs cuffs to take her down, but suddenly her whole body starts glowing hot, and the cuffs melt right off like butter. What the hell kind of freak is this? Thinking fast, Tony kicks a barrel of gasoline toward her, then ignites it with the still burning cuff, hoping the fire will stop her, but she just walks straight through the flames, like it's nothing. What she doesn't know is Tony's already set a trap. He stuffed a metal dog tag into the microwave, then yanked out the gas line and pretended to run. In a split second, a spark hits the gas and triggers a massive explosion. The woman's done for, but the danger isn't over. Savin melts through a metal railing with his bare hands. Tony tries to make a break for it, but Savin's not giving him the chance. With one hard pull, a massive water tower comes crashing down. Tony gets completely drenched, and his right leg gets pinned under twisted metal. Even worse, Savin grabs Harley and demands Tony hand over the file.
Remember what I told you about bullies?
Harley catches Tony's signal, pulls out the flash grenade Tony gave him, and nails Savin right in the face. With Harley clear of danger, Tony fires a repulsor blast and sends Savin flying. Then he pries the metal loose with a bar and frees his trapped leg. Afterward, Tony finds Harley and tells him to go home and guard the armor. If Tony calls, he needs to pick up immediately. Smart kid that he is, Harley knows Tony's doing this to keep him safe, and he's right to worry, because Savin gets right back up. His wounds heal almost instantly. Meanwhile, Pepper learns from Tony's ex-girlfriend Maya that Killian has teamed up with the Mandarin to get revenge on Stark Industries. Just as they're about to dig deeper into this, Killian shows up and finds her. He knows his cover is blown, so he decides to take Pepper hostage. On the other end, the Mandarin is even bolder. He captures a government official and executes him on live TV. He warns the president to start running, because he's next. The president isn't about to take that lying down. He sends Rhodey to take out the Mandarin's compound, but it's a trap all along. Rhodey gets caught off guard, ambushed by extremist soldiers disguised as civilians. Meanwhile, with help from an enthusiastic fan, Tony hacks into the encrypted archive files and uncovers a massive secret. The woman who tried to kill him was actually an amputee. After being injected with the extremist virus, her body mutated. Not only did her missing arm grow back instantly, she gained superhuman abilities. But the virus has a fatal flaw. Not everyone survives the transformation. If the energy exceeds the limit, they literally explode. Tony also discovers that Killian is behind everything. If he sells this technology to the Mandarin, the consequences would be catastrophic. Tony knows he has to stop this, but he's gonna need his armor to do it. So he contacts Harley, follows the kid's instructions to recharge the Mark 42, and reactivates Jarvis. With Jarvis back online, they track down the Mandarin's headquarters. Turns out it's not even that far away, but the armor's too badly damaged. Jarvis needs more time to finish repairs, and time is something they don't have. So with no other choice, Tony heads to a hardware store. He grabs a wrench, a bag of fertilizer, and who knows what else. 2 full carts of random household supplies. After some tinkering back at the shed, Tony transforms these ordinary everyday items into lethal improvised weapons.
Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off, what are you?
Then Tony infiltrates the Mandarin's compound solo. He's out to prove to everyone that even without the Iron Man suit, he can be just like Cap, a regular guy who can still be a superhero. Once inside, Tony quickly takes out a guard who's chatting someone up, grabs the guy's gun, and carefully makes his way deeper in. But it turns out the legendary Mandarin is just some random old dude with a beard. The real mastermind is someone else entirely. Just as Tony tries to get more intel, Savin appears behind him and knocks him out cold with one punch. When Tony comes to, he's strapped to a bed frame, with his ex-girlfriend Maya standing right in front of him. Maya tells Tony her hands were tied in all this. If he just cooperates, he'll make it out alive. Tony knows this isn't the time to play tough, so he tries to appeal to their past together to win her over, hoping she'll help him escape. But right then, the real villain, Killian, arrives. He asks Tony if he remembers that rooftop meeting years ago. Everything that's happening now is because of Tony's arrogance, to make Tony feel the same despair he once felt. Killian's captured Pepper too, and secretly injected her with the extremist virus. Tony is absolutely furious, but right now he's a lamb waiting for slaughter, forced to watch Pepper potentially burn from the inside out, while Killian humiliates him. But then, Maya threatens to kill herself unless Killian lets Tony go, but she vastly overestimates how much she means to him. Being threatened like that is the last straw for Killian. He kills Maya without hesitation. But surprisingly, Killian doesn't go after Tony next. Instead, he heads to where Rhodey is being held. When even a cutting torch can't get through the armor, Killian calmly walks over to Rhodey and places his hand on the suit's midsection. As his palm heats up, the armor's temperature starts skyrocketing.